نفسهم، قالوا يمكن يحصل زي اللي حصل في تونس، يمكن نبقى بلد حرة، بلد فيها عدل، بلد فيها كرامة، بلد الإنسان فيها إنسان بجد، مش عايش كحيوان. أنا بس بصور لكم فيديو عشان أقول لكم رسالة واحدة، عايزين ننزل يوم 25. لو لسه عندنا كرامة ولسه عايزين نعيش كإنسان وكبني آدمين في البلد دي، لازم ننزل يوم 25. احنا بني ادمين، ده بيفرق. قعدك في بيتك بتتفرج او بتشوف على الفيسبوك وبتتابع الاخبار، ده بيبهدلنا احنا، بيبهدلنا انا. طول ما انت بتقول مفيش امل هيبقى مفيش امل، طول ما انت بتنزل وبتسجل موقف هيبقى فيه امل. اوعى تخاف من الحكومه.
تشيك 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 1 2 3 1 2 3. It's hard for me to talk about it 7 years later and everything is not going the right way يعني. Where do you want to start?
انزل وطالب بحقك وبحقي وبحق اهلك وبحقنا كلنا. انا نازله يوم 25 وهقول للفساد لا والنظام لا.
انت اللي خاين، انت اللي مشيت وسبت حقي، انت اللي قاتل سبتني ميت وتاجرت بدمي، رضيت بالقتل وبالظلم وبالقهر وبالاهانه، سكوتك خلاني من شخص راكم جوه خانه، ميت عطشان يا بلدي، ميت عطشان حريه، ميت وعندي مبدا، ماسك علمك في ايديا، بنادي بالكرامه، محفور اسمك في قلبي، بأهان عليكي دمي، ترمي التعويض لامي، وانا اللي سهرت ليالي ارسم في يافطة عليها علمك، انا اللي نزلت مظاهره اهتف وانادي واقول في اسمك، انا اللي بحبك وانتي برضه شوهتي صورتي، انا بحر شرقك جنبك لسه معلمين في جسمي، انا كل ذكرى فيكي، انا كل فرحه ليكي، انا اللي بدعي طول صلاتي ان الله يخليكي، انا دمعة ام تانيه، انا حلم رحت ثانيه، انا اللي رحت مت عشان تعيش يا مصر عاليه.
أنا غندور، أنا مينا، أنا الشيخ عماد، أنا اللي رحت مت عشان تعيش يا مصر عالية.
In January 2011, the revolution started, and on the 12th of February, we naively celebrated on the streets of Cairo, believing that the revolution had succeeded. 9 months later, I found myself spraying messages in Tahrir Square. No to military rule. I did not feel that I could live in a city where people were being killed and thrown like garbage on the street. That led to a series of no coming out like ammunition. No to a new pharaoh, because whoever comes next should understand that we will never be ruled by another dictator. No to violence. Rami Aissam came to Tahrir on the second day of the revolution, and he sat there with his guitar singing. 1 month after Mubarak stepped down, this was his reward. No to blinding heroes. Ahmad Harara lost his right eye on the 28th of January, and he lost his left eye on the 19th of November by 2 different snipers. No to killing, in this case, no to killing men of religion, because Sheikh Ahmad al-Din Affat was shot on December 16th during a demonstration, leaving behind 3 orphans and a widow. No to burning books. The Institute of Egypt was burnt on December 17th, a huge cultural loss. No to stripping the people, and the blue bra is to remind us of our shame as a nation when we allow a veiled woman to be stripped and beaten on the street. And the footprint reads, "Long live a peaceful revolution," because we will never retaliate with violence.
it's not about art. Yani, for me, it wasn't art. It wasn't art at all because I'm not an artist. For me, it was about activism, expression, not art. You don't control the radio, you don't control TV, you don't control the internet because they are also on the internet, but you control the streets. It was a new experience. Like, we always had this authoritative police, they are on the streets, everything is controlled. And then one day, the police was not there, and we had the streets for ourselves. What you used to do is go to Tahrir and do graffiti as a form of medication. In order to live and to cope with life, you go to these two places to take your energy and then face the world. I've witnessed for the first time in Egypt equal treatment for everyone, men and women. There was no discrimination whatsoever. There was justice. It's the most romantic thing that ever happened to me, and probably to a lot of people. All of that is in just a little circle. We had our own country, it's called Tahrir.
Like the sheikh?
I myself, I can't say I've been a victim of harassments, but I would hear a lot about it on the square, and I was trying to address organized harassment as well by women who were imprisoned or taken by security, or basically they would be harassed out of the square. And so it seemed to be a bit more organized than spontaneous members of the population just harassing women for being women. And I thought anyway, those messages should be on the walls anyway in Cairo, whether there's a revolution or not. So it just got me started. It came from a feeling of helplessness and some kind of rage and urgency. And it felt like one thing I can do, something, because I felt there was nothing I could do. So this compelled me to go down and feel it's very urgent to join the street artists at the time also, and then when the harassment stories came out, this compelled me to try to portray a woman as a superhero on the walls. I'm a yoga teacher and more recently known as an artivist, which wasn't my intention. I didn't mean to become one. I don't think I still am one because it stopped. It was a brief moment in time.
لقد كنا ننادي بإسقاط النظام، واليوم ننادي بمحاكمة هذا النظام. حاكموا السفاح، حاكموا مبارك وأعوان، حاكموا السفاح، حاكموا مبارك وأعوان.
In Tahrir Square, we were really under the attack of snipers. We had no idea what could happen next, and some horrible things happened while we were there. But there was still this defiance that was so life-affirming. I've never felt as alive or as useful or as part of a real community as being in the square in the early days especially. I feel like as a human being I have a more important role than an artist in that kind of situation, and I started asking people to write their accounts.
بدأنا نتحرك من الأول. خرجنا من الشارع ده عشان نلاقي إن القاهرة بتتحرق، إن مصر كلها بتتحرق. شفت مدرعة خارج منها جندي مواجهة مدفوعة ناحية الناس. كل اللي جه في بالي وقتها صورة غزة وإسرائيل. هو الأمن ده مش عارف إن إحنا أهل وإخوات وولاد.
And I presented the first version of what I called the Tahrir stories. And at the very end, we read the names of people who died in those days.
الشهيد محمد عبد التواب صالح ميدان التحرير. الشهيد محمد جمال سليم. محمد راشد 24 سنة. محمد محروس 21 سنة.
was just some amazing stories of beauty and courage, and people finding their voice for the first time.
We didn't want to topple one person. It's the system of injustice. The main message when people went on the streets was عيش حرية عدالة اجتماعية. Bread, freedom, social justice. One day the cheer became leave, ارحل. I knew that something was wrong. It became personalized. So if that person leaves, that means the revolution is over. And he left. And the revolution was over. People drifted. I'm not happy with the results. Maybe maybe the next generations would be happier.
I was documenting for a long period during the revolution and playing the role of a historian and not really being part of the resistance on the street. But after 9 months into the revolution, at least I was so entrenched with all of these concepts, and I was really following closely. And you come to a point where you cannot simply document history. At least in my case, I felt like I couldn't just be a bystander in such a historic event. There's an active effort to annihilate any form of memory that the Arab world has. And it has been actively taking place due to colonialism. They don't want you to think that you have a history.
I make sure I teach a lot of women voices because we never really get them as mainstream. Just to reconsider, but also to ask my students to think about what is the canon and who decided what is the canon and how can we challenge that and how do we change that.
If you have a good eye on the inner process, a really good eye on your inner process, you may have a good feel for outer process. I mean, I can't help but believe there are so many parallels, you know, we are not separate. So if we could just know that our belief system affects things, even though it's invisible, it's not anything you can touch, but a belief system has is a huge variable. It can either oppress or liberate anyone.
Unfortunately, in the Arab world, we've had a severe disconnection between our history and our modernity. So every time there was an attempt to try and find solutions for modernity, it failed because it was not really based on memory. It was not based on knowledge that we had already developed.
There's a lot that needs to be done, but I feel like there are voices that are coming to add to the story and enrich it a little more. And I feel it's enough from the dead white men stories, seriously. And it's sad to be in Egypt and still adopt the dead white men knowledge as the knowledge.
It's about feeling rather than normalizing anxiety, normalizing not being balanced or centered, normalizing trauma. To feel that you can actually hack your system to be in the moment in a different way, hopefully, just a different way than what you are in, to really feel that there is a way out and it lies within you rather than some outside force. So we have to decolonize our own knowledge as well. We are our own colonizers as well, you know. Capitalism does not want you to know yourself.
My whole program is based on this idea of opening my students' eyes into the potential that is around them for change. A change will not come with big projects and big ideas. A change comes at many different levels. So I try to show them the small steps that they can take towards this change that is possible.
We witnessed some kind of change. We were responsible for it. Something shifted. Maybe it's already embedded in the people, and that's enough for me.
We only progress through evolution. Revolution is important to slap us in the face, to help you realize that you need to pause and rethink where you are as a humanity so that you can develop.
I am also a farmer, and I know that you need to plant a lot of seeds for things to grow. And many of the things I'm growing now, I will not reap the fruit of because they will take a long time, maybe way past my lifetime. And this is the same with the change and the big changes and the revolution. We are planting seeds now that will bear fruit later. So I continue to do what I believe is important, which is to connect to people and to take care of the planet. And taking care of the planet gives me some sanity. It's really hard to be depressed when you're next to trees because regardless of what's going on, they have life force and they bloom and they become amazing and lush, and you try to stay depressed, but it's really not that easy.
عيش حرية عدالة اجتماعية 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 عيش حرية عدالة اجتماعية